we've got some really exciting stuff to talk about. It's intriguing, exciting, important, and I just wanted to give you a little snippet about the novel. It's called The Ghosts That Come Between Us. And the reason for the title is there are ghosts in people's lives growing up that come back in their adult lives to haunt their adult relationships. So that's the metaphor that I've used. I'm a psychiatrist. The most important thing is that there are three main elements that people deal with in their lives. Either one or the other, or all three, unfortunately. And that is illness, abuse, and loss. And this is not a good way to sell a story. And you say, this is a story about illness, abuse, and loss. But it's also about coping. It's about how Nargis, who is the protagonist, copes with these very difficult issues in her life. And again, it's a dark story about abuse in a family and about different elements of that abuse. And I won't describe that yet. But, and so how do you sell a story like that? Well, there is a romance, there's a love story, there's a runaway wedding, there are dog stories, there's humor in how she copes with different things that happen to her. And one of the things, the coping part is that she is extremely honest. She's brutally honest in her internal dialogue and in her thought process. And it takes people, patients, several years to get to that place. And through the story, I thought I could cut short some of that pain of those years of therapy and treatment and angst with my protagonist, so that she could help somebody else understand those different steps of coping. What I have are 2 or 3 very short paragraphs that I wanted to read from my novel. And I'll go ahead and do that.
Do that.
So this is somewhere in the story, and she is in medical school. A balding specialist in a starched white coat that perfectly matched his stiff demeanor emerged from behind the curtain, waving an X-ray film in one hand and clutching a fat folder in the crook of the other armpit. If by any reason that hefty medical record is mine, fat chance of getting a clear verdict, I thought. He was briskly flipping through the pages and nodding to himself as he went along, happy that the content so robustly agreed with him. Then, he nonchalantly proceeded to throw a battery of questions in my general direction, barely taking his eyes off the written word as he continued to doodle in my chart. Nor did he pause to hear my complete answers, as if my answers did not matter. I'm not entirely sure that they did. Clearly, he had already made up his mind by just sizing me up the moment I had walked in through the door of his office, as, I believe, all top specialists are trained to do. How much weight had I lost? Did I feel tired all the time? Did my ribcage hurt when I coughed? Was my sputum streaked with occult blood? Had I noticed night sweats? When he asked me that last question, as if on cue, I started to sweat profusely, on my brow, over my upper lip, under my armpits, and along the insides of my legs, all the way down to my toes. I remember feeling paralyzed in the bright fluorescent, this looks like lights coming, this special effects. I remember feeling paralyzed in the bright fluorescent lights of the X-ray screen. My denial was rapidly ebbing, as was any hope of escaping through the exit door without a diagnosis. In that moment, I could almost predict what he was about to say. So this is something, it starts out actually as in my field, we talk about family history, we talk about the past, we talk about the parents and their history and their growing up. And so this is a little bit about when she is about perhaps 5 or 6 years old. We journeyed through dry land where the mud was cracked and sterile, through fertile land where the carefree winds swayed encouragingly over lush paddies, across bridges that stood patiently through time, past grazing cows and nodding camels. The landscape was constantly evolving outside my window, as if it was whizzing past me in the opposite direction, and I was stationary. Then suddenly, there was water everywhere, as far as the eye could see, a mass of water so enormous that it ended only where the horizon met the sky. Daddy said that on flat land, the human eye can see an object as far away as 30 miles. Something to do with the earth being a sphere. But this was like nothing I had ever seen before, this wide, majestic expanse of blue, the color of sky. I think, now I see it, and then, as the train takes a turn, now I can't. Where has it gone, and what lies beyond it? The water would always come back, as if it was following us. It looked like it had been there forever. That was how I saw the ocean for the first time. It appeared so calm, yet so intimidating, so peaceful, yet so daunting. In its mighty presence, man must feel like a blade of grass in a tornado. Where does it end, this water? Does it fall off the horizon? This is self-explanatory, and I'll just go ahead. My back always felt itchy, and Daddy would give me back rubs. Daddy always gave the best back rubs. I would put my head on his shoulders. His chest felt warm and comfortable. His armpits had this nice daddy smell. It felt so good to circle my arm around his broad shoulders and feel his love. Later, he started to loop his leg around me as well, and I would return the favor. Soon it became a leisurely pastime. He would roll me over himself to one side and then roll me back. He would then roll me back again. It was our own private game. Then he would circle my body with his strong legs and hold me there for a while. It felt special to be held like that, so close, so safe. Nothing could bother me here. Nobody could hurt me now. I was alone with Daddy. It was our special time together. It was meant only for me. It was around this time, I think, when I first started to bite my nails. It was also around this time I now know that innocence ended for me forever. I had just turned 9. And then the last portion is when she's an adult and she's reflecting back on her life and she's still in the throes of the angst of growing up in her family. How do I navigate through insanity and come back from the depths of grief and betrayal? How can I describe the anger that peels off several layers of skin? How can I describe the pain? Pain from a festering wound that has started to smell like shit. The angst feels like it comes from somewhere deep inside me, from a place that I do not know actually exists, a place that I cannot reach myself, somewhere deep inside my soul, or what is left of it. My soul begins to cry. Poor, lonely, lost soul. It is the child inside me who's lonely and lost and forgotten and abused. She was an innocent child once, this Nergis, not knowing good from bad, not knowing bad from evil, not knowing evil from sin, not having a care in the world. All she ever wanted was love. Look what she got instead. Even the memory of love has been erased. I lost that little child who just wanted love.
So let me begin, Bulbul, by asking you, first of all, why you decided to write your novel about a young girl coming to terms with her past in the first person.
So Valerie, I was originally thinking, thank you for asking that, I was thinking of writing about my own life, but as I started to do that, I thought it was not such an interesting life to write about. So then I had already started the first person, and then at some point, of course, there are, because it's my first novel, and I do believe with some of the other authors I've spoken with, they talk about, especially in the first novel, there's more autobiographical information or material. And so I have used some elements of that in that she is a medical student, becomes a psychiatrist, goes to some of the countries and places that I've also visited and traveled to. But the first person account I felt was important because that's what I do in my office on a regular basis, is that when I listen to somebody telling me about a problem that they have, I step into the shoes of that person. And when I step into their shoes, I imagine what it is like for them to experience what they experience. And that's the way, that's the empathic role that I have as their therapist or psychiatrist. And that's the best way to understand what they are experiencing, and that's the best way for me to help them. And so I thought I would do the same thing with my protagonist and step into her shoes and travel to the same scenes and sounds and experience all of the difficult things that she has experienced in her life. A bold step, of course, as a psychiatrist, because we stay very anonymous. But again, it's not about my life, in that it's about Nargis.
Mm. So Nargis grew up in a newly independent India, which had recently gone through tremendous upheavals and violence as the subcontinent shed its colonial past and split into Pakistan and India. And Nargis's own mother had moved at that time from Pakistan to India. There are lyrical descriptions of the beauty Nargis finds in various landscapes in which the military family lives for a few years at a time. And there are also fascinating accounts of visiting grandparents in remote areas when Nargis mentions women mired in their feudal past. Later, Nargis also speaks of the depravity of life in the third world. So I wonder if you could tell us about the role of India in the book and to some extent in your life too.
So, well, I was born and raised in India and then left India when I was very young. I was still a teenager when I left India. But the impressions that many people have that are in the formative years of their life are the impressions that they carry with them into their adult lives. And I'm sure many of you have experienced that when you think about your childhood. Those are lasting impressions. They are deep, they are colorful, they are memorable, and they impact how you think and what you believe in, and how you relate to other people. And India, a nation when I was young was independent. I was born in free, independent India. But India was still coming out of the colonial past and still evolving and changing and continues to do so. And so I feel, and India's heterogeneous entity in that there are pockets of that childhood India that I still see today. It's very easy to, it's not like a south side or a north side city. India, you step out of your door and you can come to what we call in Chicago south side. And that's what adds to the color that we see in India, a land of color. And so the mother does come from Pakistan, and there's of course a mention of the impact of that partition, that a lot of people who are of Indian origin or of Pakistani origin who can relate to that, because that had a deep impact on shaping their lives. And again, going back to Nargis and her mother, who was displaced, and the effect of that on her own development, and how then that affected the child.